Discover the surprising truth behind the deadly life of Victorian bakers. An incredible journey? Martha Thompson pressed her palms against the cool, worn countertop of her father's old bakery. The Thompson-s need, trying to absorb the weight of a future that felt increasingly bleak. Dust motes danced in the late afternoon light that barely pierced the narrow window as she gazed at the peeling wallpaper adorned with images of pastries now buried in neglect. Since her father's death, the days had turned into an exhausting gauntlet, where debts grew larger than the meager funds in the emptying cash register. She feared that the slow demise of the bakery mirrored the fading smiles of her two young children. They deserved more than the crumbling facade around them. Her heart raced as she rifled through piles of old crates in search of anything useful. Then she stumbled upon a hidden diary bound by fraying twine, its leather cover cracked. With a cautious breath, she opened it, her pulse quickening with each word. Each entry revealed grim secrets about the baking trade, grotesque practices, competitors who thrived on backdoor schemes, and tragic incidents that had been relegated to gossip among the city's darkest alleys. She felt a thirst for justice rise within her, an urge to confront those lurking shadows overshadowing their community. Yet a throaty dread clawed at her as she pictured her children's faces in distress. Could she dare expose these truths, realize her ambition, and still preserve their safety? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days passed in a blur of baking, her hands becoming achingly familiar with the dough that yielded to her touch. Mr. Hargrove, a retired baker whose warmth made her forget the chill in her heart, guided her through old recipes, blending tradition with safety precautions that could stand against the ruthless competition. Their laughter sometimes bubbled over the sound of the kneading, transforming the bakery into a space where dreams felt possible again. Yet, the specter of her rival lurked close, and doubt nibbled at the edges of her resolve. With every customer who walked past her battered door and into the gleaming sanctuary of her competitoress, despair coiled tighter around her heart. Just as hope appeared to swell, tragedy struck. One evening, while closing the shop, the echoes of laughter turned into piercing screams. Martha's heart plummeted when she learned that her competitor had turned to sabotage an act that endangered her children's safety. The tangled knot of darkness and desperation gave birth to frantic thoughts. Was it wise to pursue the truth? Should she risk everything to stand against the man willing to harm her family just for a slice of the market? As the crossroads loomed, Martha's thoughts churned violently within her mind. Still clutching her father's legacy, determination battled with maternal instinct. She felt suspended between two worlds, an advocate for justice and a mother shielding her children from unseen dangers. Placing a hand over her racing heart, she could almost feel the walls closing in, the burden of choice threatening to crush her spirit. Could she push through the suffocating fear, ignite the fire of change in her community, or would she collapse under the weight of relentless threats? As the town meeting approached, the tension lingered thick in the air, and with it, the knowledge that her next steps could either reclaim the dignity of her father's bakery or doom them all to silence. Martha stared at the diary spread open before her, the inked words blurring as tears threatened to spill over her lashes. Each entry weighed on her psyche, filled with cautionary tales and sinister twists among her predecessors in the trade. The price of ambition echoed in the corridors of her mind, reminding her that every decision carried the potential for fallout. The thought of her children, a flickering image of their innocent faces, spurred her onward. But could her resolve withstand the storm brewing in the shadows? That night, as the bakery settled into an uneasy silence, Martha wrestled with her fear. She could either succumb to despair and silence, allowing her dreams to dissolve like sugar in hot water, or she could face the brewing storm, wielding the very truth she had unearthed as her weapon. A flicker of determination ignited. She needed to gather her strength, find an ally among her dwindling circle of support. The next morning, While the sun barely crested the horizon, Martha arrived early at the bakery. The scent of fresh bread danced in the air as she prepared her station. An idea sparked: what if Mr. Hargrove could rally others to help her stand against the impending threat? The elderly baker had lived through many grim chapters of the baking trade. His insights might be crucial in unearthing the leverage she needed. As the door chimed open, Martha stepped into the same sunlight that had once cast her father in a glorious light. When Mr. Hargrove finally arrived, she wasted no time. "We need to talk," she said, urgency threading through her voice. She explained the malicious acts her competitor had unleashed and revealed the contents of the diary the twisted lengths rivals had gone to in their ambition. Mr. Hargrove listened intently, his furrowed brow deepening with every revelation. "You know, Martha," he began, his voice low and steady, "the truth is a currency. Can empower you but also put you in danger. Have you thought about that?" "I have, but I can't turn a blind eye. This bakery is all we have left of my father. I'll not allow it to fall into despair just because one man thinks he can intimidate us," she replied, her tone resolute. And yet doubts flickered within her mind. Could she truly convey the reality of their industry without suffering consequences? Would she sacrifice her safety and that of her children for the sake of exposing a rotten truth? As these thoughts tumbled in her head, she sensed the potential operational plans that could shift in her favor if she played her cards right. Together, they sketched out a makeshift strategy, collecting testimonials from others who had suffered at the hands of the ruthless competitor, researching regulations that might offer legal avenues for protection and, if necessary, turning the diary's revelations into evidence. In that brainstorming session, something shifted within Martha. A powerful mix of hope and bravery surged through her. Later, as she scrubbed flour from her hands after a long day, Martha felt a flicker of possibility. Perhaps she could change the narrative. Witnesses and allies at her side, she planned to confront her adversary, armed not just with whispers of injustice but with the tangible support of others willing to stand up against oppression. But as the town meeting drew near, a sense of foreboding crept closer, wrapping its cold fingers around her resolve. What if her competitor struck back harder? The stakes hadn't merely risen. They spiraled toward an uncertain climax. Every anxious second that ticked filled her with both dread and anticipation. Would she stand firm, carving out a new legacy for her children, or would familiar fears tighten their grip, neutralizing her defiance? The time was racing toward an inevitable confrontation. Her next move could alter the trajectory of her life forever. Once again, she found herself at a crossroads, ready to face the harsh truth that lay ahead, but completely unaware of the opponent's next strategic turn. The moment of reckoning was fast approaching, and she could feel the weight of her decision bearing down on her as though she stood before the threshold of a darkened doorway. Would she step through, or retreat into safety? Martha leaned against the counter, inhaling the warm, yeasty air that lingered in the bakery. The tranquility of the early morning felt fragile beneath the weight of the impending confrontation. Her heart drummed in her chest, each beat a reminder of the risks she was preparing to take. Mr. Hargrove's words echoed in her mind, a specter of warning hovering just beyond her resolve. Could the truth she wielded indeed become a double-edged sword? As she rolled out dough for her signature pastries, thoughts flickered between moments of optimism and the dark specter of anxiety. Her children needed her strength, yet the enormity of the oncoming meeting threatened to crumble her determination into fine dust. She could already envision their smiles, oblivious to the tempest brewing just outside their innocent world. Every time a door creaked or a bell chimed, her composure teetered closer to the brink. Determined to regain her focus, she shifted her attention to the task at hand. Kneading the dough, her hands worked rhythmically, a physical manifestation of her conflicting emotions. She could pour her heart into the ingredients. But how could she pour her courage into the fight ahead? With each fold and press, she harnessed the tension within her, questioning the strength of her own will. The hours blurred together, her movements mechanical yet grounding. But as noon approached, the nudge of uncertainty began to gnaw at her resolve. Martha wiped the sweat from her brow and looked up, catching her reflection in the bakery window. She was stronger than she felt. The diary had opened her eyes to the treachery lurking beyond her father's legacy. Wouldn't he be proud of her fighting spirit? The town meeting loomed before her like an inevitable tide. That evening, she would take a stand, defending not just her bakery but the very principles upon which it stood. A plan of action was set, yet doubt seeped in, echoing the cautionary tales of her predecessors. There was no going back. She was already dancing on the knife's edge as she prepared to leave the bakery that afternoon. A stirring impulse to write gripped her. She grabbed a notepad and began crafting a speech. The more she wrote, the clearer her vision became. She focused on her journey, detailing not just the injustices but the love that made her fight worth it. Her words flowed like a warm glaze over fresh buns, pouring emotion and reality into each line. With her speech drafted, she gathered her materials, a stack of testimonials and the diary excerpts she would reference to impart credibility. The weight of her evidence felt reassuring in her hands. She felt a flicker of confidence ignite, seeping into her core. Then, just as she was about to lock the door, a shadow darted across the glass. Martha's heart sank as she recognized the silhouette of her competitor, Robson Kurth, lurking outside, his gaze fixed on her bakery. Rage and fear entwined in her mind, the haze of uncertainty giving way to a steely clarity. He was aware of her plans. The threat wasn't just a looming possibility. It was already at her doorstep. Would this confrontation escalate into a more dangerous game? Martha's breath quickened as she contemplated the impending meeting. It was time to prepare for war, to don the armor that would clash with Robson's intimidating presence. She stepped outside to confront him. Her spirit surged. The tide may rise, but so would she. The moment had come to show that her fear would no longer dictate her actions. The meeting would not just be a battle for her bakery. It was a battle for her legacy and the future she envisioned for her children. Could she summon the strength needed to face him, despite the chilling aura of intimidation that surrounded Robson? Martha's calculated determination brimmed with intensity as she approached him. "This ends tonight," she said, words unyielding as the knife she gripped before her. But Robson only smirked, drawing her into an even deeper web of confrontation, a twist she hadn't anticipated. The true test of her strength was about to begin, and she was powerless to know how it would unfold. Martha stood her ground, the vibrancy of the bakery's atmosphere melting into a tense silence that enveloped her. Robson's smirk cut through the stillness like a knife, and in that moment, the stakes crystallized. He was not merely a competitor. He was an embodiment of all the fears and doubts she had been wrestling with. His presence forced her to confront not only her plans but the very essence of her resolve. "Is this how you greet a neighbor?" he taunted, the words dripping with condescension. Martha's mind raced. This was no longer just about defending her bakery. It was about standing firm in her beliefs. The emotional armor she had pieced together through her writing felt flimsy against Robson's cold demeanor. Could self-doubt worm its way into her confrontation? She couldn't allow it. Her children were watching her. They deserved a mother who faced challenges head-on, not someone who cowered at the first sign of opposition. Taking a deep breath, she returned his gaze. "It's about time someone stood up for what's right," she replied, her voice steady. Inwardly, she fought the tightening grip of anxiety. She could feel the trembling on the edges of her resolve, but she pushed it down, focusing instead on the truth that powered her actions. Maintaining her sight on him, she moved closer. She had nothing left to hide. "You think shouting about principles will save this little bakery of yours?" He countered, arms crossed. "You're playing a dangerous game." Martha's pulse raced, yet beneath her apprehension, a thread of defiance began to take shape. "You underestimation me, Robson. This isn't just about the bakery. It's about a whole community that believes in what I'm trying to do here. You can't bully people out of this town." She steadied herself, grounding her conviction in her love for her family and her passion for baking. He tipped his head, a smirk still dancing on his lips. "Word to the wise, passion doesn't pay the bills." The statement stumbled her momentarily. She recalled the countless nights spent perfecting recipes, the joy of seeing satisfied customers leave her shop with pastries that they savored. Her head spun. Was she truly that naive? Could passion fail in the face of cold, hard capitalism? Suddenly, a surge of clarity struck. Her hands had always done the talking for her, crafting new flavors, concocting sustenance for the spirit. Perhaps it was time to let her voice join the conversation. "I'm not just a baker," she stated firmly. "I'm a mother who believes in the power of our choices." With each word, an energy ignited within her that was impossible to extinguish. "I refuse to accept your conditions or let fear dictate our futures." Robson's gaze faltered for the briefest of moments, but the mockery quickly returned. "A convenient narrative for a failing venture." "You're right about one thing," she continued, her heart hammering with conviction. "This place may not be perfect, but it stands for something greater. You can try to twist the truth against me, but when the people gather tonight, it's my message that will prevail." Martha stepped back, her mind racing ahead to the meeting. A public platform awaited her, and in that moment, she believed that her words could wield the power she needed. Her journey was not just the tale of survival. It was the transformation of a woman driven to reclaim her legacy. With Robson still staring, a new resolve solidified within her. The confrontation provided her with an unexpected clarity, and she realized that her past was not a chain to bind her, but a set of wings that could elevate her above doubt. In the days that followed, Martha poured her entire being into mastering her speech, practicing in the quiet moments before dawn. She would not merely present facts. She would weave a narrative around hope and resilience. Yet, as her stain of confidence grew, a nagging thought prickled at her mind. What if Robson's influence extended further than she understood? Had she underestimated his connections and reach? The meeting was hours away, and the true fight was still ahead. Confidence, intermingled with tension, like flour and sugar waiting to be transformed. Could she truly inspire her community not just to defend her bakery but to believe in the change she envisioned? And what if the answers she sought lay buried deeper within the layers of her father's legacy? As she moved to her kitchen, its familiar warmth enfolding her, the question lingered. What else had she yet to discover about herself and the impact of her lineage before she stepped into the fray? Inside the bakery, the familiar sense of butter and sugar enveloped Martha like a comforting embrace. Yet the weight of her confrontation with Robson lingered heavily in the air. She found herself moving instinctively, her hands kneading dough as her mind spun with thoughts. The rhythm was reassuring, but the tension within her was anything but calming. Martha paused, the dough resting under her palms as she reflected on Robson's words. They echoed in her mind, stinging with an unsettling truth. Passion might not pay the bills, but wasn't it the flame that ignited creativity? Could she turn that fire into something tangible? What if she approached her business from a new angle? She stepped back, her heart racing. With clarity surging in her chest, she began scribbling ideas on the notepad by her side. Quality had always been her priority, but Robson's challenge sparked a question. What if she ventured into new territory, collaborating with local farmers for seasonal ingredients, hosting baking classes to engage the community? Could these approaches burn brighter than mere survival? As she considered the possibilities, another wave of fear washed over her. What if these innovative ideas bore no fruit? What if she risked everything and failed? The image of her children's faces flashed before her eyes. She could not disappoint them. They needed a mother who triumphed over adversity, not one who shrank back from it. Gritting her teeth, she pushed the doubts aside. Martha refocused, immersing herself in her planning. The clock ticked ominously, reminding her that before dusk, she had to emerge as more than just a baker. She had to be an advocate for her cause. That evening, the bakery transformed as she set the stage, arranging fresh pastries in the front display and preparing the seating area for the gathering. The air buzzed with anticipation, but beneath the excitement lay a current of anxiety that nearly suffocated her. As customers arrived, she summoned her strength, confident that her speech would resonate deeply with those who entered. Each familiar face that crossed the threshold infused her with resolve. Yet her gaze flickered back to the door every few moments, as if expecting Robson to make an appearance, ready to undermine her efforts. She shook off the apprehension. Tonight was not just about defending her bakery. but about inviting the community to join her vision for something more meaningful. When her moment finally arrived, Martha stepped to the front, hands trembling slightly as she held the microphone. The crowd's murmurs faded into silence, their eyes fixed upon her. Gathering her breath, she began not just with facts about her bakery, but with stories that illuminated the heart of her mission. I stand here not just as a baker, but as a proud member of this community, she started, her voice gaining strength. Each loaf, each pastry crafted, carries the legacy of family and hard work. In my father's recipes, I find not just sustenance, but passion, determination, and hope. Her words flowed, and as she spoke, she felt a metamorphosis occurring within her. With each sentence, insecurities melted away, replaced by a growing sense of agency. It felt like reclaiming her narrative, a narrative that belonged not only to her but to anyone who dared to pursue their dreams despite adversity. As she shared her vision for the bakery's future, Martha saw the flicker of understanding in their eyes. They connected with her passion, her fight against a world that seemed determined to suffocate small businesses like hers. Perhaps she could inspire more than just a defense. Perhaps she could motivate her neighbors to embrace resilience. Yet amid her rising confidence, a shadow of doubt crept in. What if Robson or someone like him was orchestrating a plan behind the scenes? What if they were just waiting for her to stumble, ready to seize any misstep? With a determined gaze, Martha wrapped up her speech, inviting the audience to not just rally behind her bakery but to envision how they could all collaborate in revitalizing their community's spirit. The applause rippled through the room, but as her heart soared, her mind nodded with the hypothetical threats still looming. Little did Martha know, the real battle was just beginning, and the winding paths of her father's legacy held both question and revelation. When dawn broke, would she find the guidance necessary to confront the unseen challenges ahead? As she stepped down, the evening's applause felt like both an embrace and an omen, whispering unanswered questions just out of reach. With the morning sun filtering through the bakery's windows, Martha arrived early, her nerves tingling with anticipation. The applause from the previous evening still echoed in her mind, empowering yet intimidating. She brushed flour from her apron, attempting to ground herself. The day ahead promised new challenges, but she couldn't shake the lingering apprehension nestled in the back of her mind. Robson. She delved into her routine, kneading and shaping her creations while contemplating the feedback she'd received. The community had responded positively. Still, lingering doubts gnawed at her. Would they support her upcoming ventures? Could the momentum from her speech translate into actual growth? Her first task was planning the baking classes. Each day that passed felt like a step toward a new identity, one that extended beyond simply baking. She envisioned a space where she could share knowledge, foster creativity, and forge connections. What if these classes became a means of igniting passion in others? Yet a creeping fear complicated her vision. What if they didn't sell? What if the classes were a financial drain instead of a source of revenue? As Martha measured flour and cracked eggs, she couldn't resist the harsh whispers of doubt that filled her mind. The memory of Robson's critiques replayed relentlessly. Nobody wants to learn from a struggling baker. She resisted the urge to let his words take root in her psyche. Her father had taught her the importance of resilience, of pushing through the doubt. What would he have said in this situation? Suddenly, she paused. A moment of clarity seized her. What if she harnessed her father's legacy? Perhaps creating an experiential class centered around family recipes could draw interest. People craved authenticity, an opportunity to bond over nostalgic flavors. With renewed determination, she grabbed her notepad, scribbling ideas for promotional materials that spoke not of her struggles, but of her heritage. As the day progressed, she started contacting local farmers, her excitement growing with every conversation. They responded favorably, eager to collaborate and supply seasonal ingredients. Each affirmative answer stroked her confidence, emboldening her vision for the bakery's future. But behind the exhilaration lurked fear. The deeper she ventured into this unfamiliar territory, the more potential pain awaited her should it all falter. Despite these fears, Martha began reimagining her space. The workshop area, once strictly utilitarian, transformed into a vibrant hub filled with the colors and smells of fresh produce and baked goods. She found herself rearranging tables, hung fresh herbs, and painted the walls in warm, inviting tones. Each change solidified her commitment this was not just a bakery. It was a place of learning and community growth. Later, while closing the shop, she felt that split second of hesitation. Just as her hands reached for the lights to extinguish each bulbous glow, she envisioned failure. Robson's cynical voice infiltrated her thoughts again, and she wrestled with the urge to retreat. Yet as she stood beneath the warm light, surrounded by the evidence of her labor, she recalled the conversations she had with her community, the laughter, the shared stories. Each interaction reminded her of the importance of taking risks. The foliage outside swayed softly, hinting at the possibilities just beyond tomorrow. With each concluding day, Martha focused her resolve on reaching for that new frontier, even as the shadows of uncertainty loomed. Perhaps the next class would lack attendees. Perhaps her plans would falter. But she would not fold. She had traded self-doubt for determination, a weight that shifted her very being. The tensions roiling within her heart crystallized into an unwavering commitment. It was time to enact her vision. As she turned out the last light, her phone buzzed with a message, its screen illuminating her resolve. "Let us talk about the market regarding your classes." Instantly, her heartbeat quickened. Was this a sign, or merely coincidence? The exploration had just begun, and the next obstacle seemed imminent. But fears were not enough to deter her now. Now the questions loomed larger than ever. Was she ready to confront the obstacles ahead, or would she find her resolve tested in ways she had not anticipated? Would today's promise transform into tomorrow's reality, or would she once again find herself facing an unexpected reckoning? Martha's heart raced as she processed the message on her phone. The words danced in her mind like fireflies, offering a flicker of hope amidst a growing fog of trepidation. "Let us talk about the market regarding your classes." Was it a genuine interest from a potential client or just another tease of rejection? She tucked her phone into her apron pocket and forced herself to breathe. This conversation could validate her aspirations, proving that the community might indeed embrace the ventures she dreamed of. Yet the shadow of Robson's skepticism lingered, reminding her of the uphill climb that lay ahead. The thought was suffocating. She wrestled with it as she gathered her things and locked the bakery doors. In the stillness of her evening commute home, Martha reflected on her father's resilience, recalling tales of his early struggles. Each anecdote had been layered with hard-earned wisdom. He faced disapproval in his community too, yet he relentlessly pursued his passion. "If you care enough, the people will come," he had once told her, a mantra that felt more like an isolated wish than a promise. Once home, she settled at the kitchen island that had become her late-night thinking spot. A swallow of lukewarm tea sat untouched as she laid out her plans on the table. Each rough sketch of her class ideas represented a piece of herself, a piece of her father's legacy. The idea of offering classes centered around family recipes was blooming into something more substantial than she had anticipated. But doubts brewed within her. How could she ensure the success of her classes when all the tools felt so untested? The very thought of standing before a group of eager learners made her stomach twist. What if someone asked a question she couldn't answer? What if she stumbled on a simple recipe? The night unfolded slowly, the quiet punctuated only by the scratching of her pen against paper. Each stroke felt decisive, layers of her vision meshing into clarity. She organized her classes by difficulty and theme: sweet and savory, traditional and contemporary. She invented catchy titles and formulated learning outcomes. The structures took shape, mimicking the loaves she crafted each day. Yet, as she jotted down ideas, Martha felt an unseen weight pressing down, as if Robson's voice echoed in the recesses of her mind. "Who will come to your bakery? You're just a struggling baker." It was maddening. Why did that notion cling to her like stubborn flour on the counter? But igniting that inner duel fueled her further. Confrontation was not merely an aspect of the upcoming market meeting. It became an inherent necessity for her development. She envisioned the faces of those who could benefit from her classes, novices eager to learn, hobbyists refining their craft. They might not just be students. They might become creators themselves, people who leave a mark, much like her father had. The next morning, as she prepared for her meeting, there was a newfound firmness to her demeanor. Her touch on the dough felt different, clearer, purposeful. She embraced the potential failures that lay ahead not as curses but as opportunities for learning and growth. She had already overcome her worst critics. Herself. At the bakery, as the bell above the door chimed, Martha was met by the charm of the morning light illuminating the flour-dusted countertop. She engaged with customers, narrating her vision with infectious passion, drawing interest not just to the baked goods but to the classes she envisioned. Each conversation fortified her resolve. Then, as she prepared the presentation materials for her meeting, the door creaked open, and in walked an unexpected visitor. It was Robson. The air hung thick with tension as he approached the counter, the challenge of their past lingering between them. With an air of skepticism he asked, "So, what's this I hear about classes?" Martha felt a knot form in her stomach, yet beneath the anxiety lay a sliver of excitement. This could be the moment she had been waiting for. "Robson," she said, steadier than she felt, "it's time to share the flavors of my father's recipes. Will you join me in this adventure?" The moment of truth had arrived, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Would this encounter empower her, or would it send her spiraling back into doubt? As she awaited his reaction, the world around her seemed to freeze, and she steeled herself for what was to come. Robson's expression shifted from skepticism to contemplation, and for a heartbeat, the bakery seemed suspended in time. The tension coiled tightly around Martha. She held her breath, drawing strength from the sincerity of her proposal. Would he see beyond old grievances and recognize the passion that infused her vision? "Classes? Huh?" he mused, his voice hinting at a mixture of surprise and doubt. "What makes you think people will want to learn from you?" His challenge stung, a reminder of her own insecurities. But she couldn't let the familiar chill of self-doubt overtake her. Martha remembered her father's struggles with acceptance, the way he faced naysayers with dignity and conviction. She gathered her resolve, determination sparking a warmth in her chest. "Because I believe in what I'm offering. These recipes are part of our heritage, and I want to share that. I've spent years perfecting them, and there's a community of bakers out there, people hungry to learn." Robson's brow furrowed, a wariness settling over him, but an ember of intrigue flickered in his eyes. "Sounds ambitious. But what qualifications do you have? Anyone could throw together some ingredients and call it a class." The criticism pulled at her. Martha had never personally evaluated her skills in such a stark manner. She had always seen them as a natural extension of her upbringing. Noticing the opportunity in his challenge, she grasped for clarity. "I may not have formal teaching credentials, but I know how to make these recipes sing. More importantly, I understand the heart behind them. Cooking is about connection, and I want to create that connection in my classes." A silence enveloped them, weighted with the possibilities of her aspirations and the palpable barriers of doubt. It was then that she realized this moment was not solely about Robson's judgment. It was about her own acceptance of her worth. She had to prove not just to him but to herself that she had something valuable to contribute. "Look, Martha," he said, his tone softening. "Everyone gets burned by a bad class. If you're going to do this, make sure you're ready. You don't want to start with your reputation on the line." His concern echoed the fears she harbored deep within, yet it ignited a flicker of defiance. Martha straightened, the corners of her mouth tightening into a small smile, however tentative. "So I'll do it right. I'll run practice classes before launching anything for the public. Then, when I'm confident, I'll be ready to present my best." The shift in Robson's demeanor nudged her forward. His voice carried a hint of respect as he said, "That's the spirit. Just remember, practice doesn't mean hiding behind the scenes. You will have to face real feedback and judgment. That's the real test." Martha inhaled sharply. The challenges ahead felt daunting, but with each passing moment in this conversation, she found herself unraveling layers of confidence she hadn't known existed. No more shying away from judgment. No more doubts filing away her dreams. Then let this meeting be my starting point, she declared, tone unwavering. I'll take whatever constructive criticism you have and build from it. Robson nodded slowly, a grudging acknowledgement that sparked a new flame of camaraderie between them. I'll help you with that, but try to bring something into these classes that sets them apart. What's going to make somebody choose your class over going to anyone else's? Martha's mind raced. Maybe I can incorporate stories behind the recipes. Make it not just about the baking but about why these dishes matter. Curate a narrative that's more than just craft. As she spoke, she envisioned not only what each class might look like, but how sharing these stories would create a deeper connection between her and her future students. Robson's expression lightened, though she could still see the flicker of skepticism shimmering behind it. All right, let us see what you can put together. Keep me posted on your progress, and don't hesitate to reach out if you need a sounding board. Maybe it's worth a shot. His tentative support bolstered her spirits, but beneath the excitement lurked the shadows of potential failure. Would this resolve hold when faced with the realities of running a class? Thank you, Robson. I will not let fear hold me back, she replied, buoyed by both the challenge and opportunity. As she began to imagine the possibilities ahead, Martha felt a shift within herself, an evolution propelled by her unwavering commitment. Walking away from the bakery that day, she understood that she wasn't merely stepping into the territory of a new venture. She was charting a course into uncharted territories of self-discovery. Yet, as the door swung shut behind her, another voice turned her focus inward, as the doubts surged anew. What if they don't connect with your stories, or worse, reject your recipes? Martha steeled herself. The fiery determination to face her fears forged a new path. Would she rise to meet the expectations she had set? Would the classes spark creativity in others and leave a legacy of her own? A new resolve bubbled within her, entangled with the looming uncertainty. As she prepared to confront the most formidable foe, yet her own capacity to inspire and teach others. And it was time now to explore if she could thrive beyond the bakery. What would she discover about herself as she faced the first test of public scrutiny with her practice class? Martha spent the next few weeks meticulously planning her practice class. The rhythm of gathering ingredients and coordinating equipment set a purposeful tone, an energizing mantra that drowned out her creeping doubts. She took small steps, yet each one held the weight of her aspirations. Gathering recipes felt like curating a portfolio, and she spent nights refining her approach, careful to intertwine her heritage with culinary techniques that breathed life into each dish as the days passed. Buoyed by new resolve, Martha also recognized a growing discomfort. The challenge she had set before herself was deeper than just teaching a few recipes. It was about revealing the fabric of her spirit through food. The anxiety phoenix posed around public judgment began to morph into a peculiar curiosity. What if the stories she wove, ancient and contemporary alike, breathed life into her teaching? As she balanced tradition with innovation, Martha found herself experimenting, unearthing flavors she never thought she could summon. On a particularly quiet afternoon, as she organized ingredients on the countertop, her cell phone buzzed with a message from Robson. I'm interested in coming to your practice class. Want me to provide feedback? For a moment, she felt her heart race, an instinctive mix of excitement and trepidation. This was it. This was the moment she needed to step into her vulnerability and face the uncertainty of her aspirations head-on. Sure. I'd love your input, she typed back, but her fingers hesitated, poised above the screen. Was she truly ready for this? Her mind flitted back to their last encounter. Robson's wavering faith had crackled like a live wire through their conversation, igniting a clarity she had not felt before. Yet the stakes felt higher now. She wasn't merely facilitating a class but inviting judgment on her essence. What if her stories fell flat? What if her dishes didn't resonate? Her inner dialogue coiled tighter, threading doubt back into her mind like an unwelcome shadow. Prepare a narrative, Martha, she whispered to herself, visualizing the students gathered around the beautifully lit kitchen island, eager to absorb not just lessons, but her passion. As she practiced her story aloud, she sensed the shift in her anxiety. Martha began to speak of her late father, whose legacy resonated with every recipe. She recounted the countless afternoons spent with him, each story bursting forth with flavor and emotion. Felt right. This was more than just a class. It became a homage to her family, a bridge that connected her past to the present. As she rehearsed, small victories began to push aside her insecurity. She organized the class structure, an introductory segment where she would share her passion followed by guided demonstrations punctuated with personal anecdotes. It was this framing that could potentially transform her teaching into a communal experience of connection and understanding. The day of the practice class arrived unexpectedly fast. Martha awoke early, every nerve in her body igniting with an anxious fire. In the quiet moments before anyone arrived, a profound stillness enveloped her. She took deep breaths, rerouting her focus from fear to excitement. The doorbell rang, and there was Robson, armed with his notebook and a slight nod of encouragement. "Let us see what you've got," he said, a glimmer of challenge simmering in his voice. Martha felt her pulse quicken. The moment had arrived. As her future students started to gather, she realized they wore expressions similar to her own, a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. It dawned on her. They were just as eager to forge connections as she was. A weight lifted as she embraced her place in the kitchen. She stepped forward, welcoming each participant with a smile. "Today, I want to share not just recipes but the heart behind them, stories that make these dishes a part of who we are." With each word, she recognized the transformation within herself. She was not simply a baker. She was a storyteller. She was ready to teach. But as the chatter began to flow, a subtle urge prickled at the back of her mind. Was she prepared to weather the criticism that might follow? Would her students resonate with her candor or retreat behind walls of indifference? The simmering anxiety bubbled with fresh tension. Her journey into uncharted territory had begun, but the real test loomed just ahead. Would she inspire the connection she so desperately sought? The moment of confrontation with her own capabilities was close. What awaited her on the other side of these stories would define not just her teaching, but her very identity. Martha stood before her students in the warm, inviting kitchen of the Thompsons' Need, the air laden with the sweet aroma of dough and sugar. Today was not just a practice class. It was a culmination of all her fears and dreams, stitched together by the very legacy her father had imbued in her. She inhaled deeply, feeling a rush of emotions, excitement, and anxiety coursing through her. "Welcome, everyone," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "Today, we will embark on a culinary journey that is as much about crafting pastries as it is about sharing stories. Each recipe holds a piece of my heart, and I hope to share that with you." As she launched into her first demonstration, the familiar rhythms of kneading, rolling, and shaping the dough grounded her, transforming her nervous energy into creative enthusiasm. She shared not just techniques, but the personal anecdotes that tied these recipes to her childhood memories, her father's unwavering spirit, and the community they had nourished together. The laughter that flowed from her students infused the room with warmth and joy, and each smile ignited a spark of confidence within her. Halfway through the class, Martha introduced her signature recipe for cinnamon rolls, a comforting reflection of her family's history. As the dough rose and filled the space with an intoxicating scent, she saw the glimmers of realization in her students' faces. They were engaged, curious, and eager to learn not just the how, but also the why behind each step. This connection blossomed, transforming the classroom into a sanctuary of shared purpose. As the students mixed the glaze for the rolls, Martha took a moment to observe them. This was what she had envisioned. A community gathered in her bakery, united by the simple yet profound act of baking. Each student laughed and collaborated, exchanging tips and techniques, and it dawned on her that her fears of judgment had been unfounded. They were not there to critique her but to join her in this adventure. Just then, Robson raised a hand, interrupting her thoughts. "These are incredible," he remarked, his tone genuine as he sampled a cinnamon roll, his brows lifting in surprise. "It's impressive to see how you've connected your stories with the food. It gives these recipes a soul." Martha felt a swell of pride. Feedback from Robson was not just recognition, it was validation of her journey. As the class progressed, Martha felt the weight of her insecurities lift. She was more than just a baker. She was a leader, an educator, and a guardian of her father's legacy. When the class concluded, the applause felt like a much-deserved reward. The round of applause grew louder, enveloping her in a blanket of acceptance. Later that evening, as she cleaned up the kitchen, a wave of reflection washed over her. She had conquered her doubts and emerged as a dynamic presence. Her practice class was a success. Not only had she taught others to bake, but she had woven a tapestry of resilience, passion, and community around her creations. The whispers of Robson's criticisms faded into an echo of encouragement, challenging her in ways she hadn't anticipated. That night, Martha collapsed onto her couch, physically drained but emotionally buoyant. Her children bounced around, their laughter warming her heart. In that moment, she recognized her metamorphosis. She was no longer shackled by fear. She had transformed her bakery into a place of light, a space where she could share love in the guise of pastries, nourishing both body and soul. Hearing the applause of her students replay in her mind, she felt the thrill of hope, igniting yet another flame for the journey ahead. Tomorrow and all the days to follow, she would continue to build on this foundation, expanding her classes and exploring the endless possibilities of collaboration, innovation, and connection. Martha understood now that true success wasn't merely measured by profit margins or accolades. It lay in the impact she had on others. She had faced her fears, embraced her identity, and carved out her path forward, fulfilling her ambition while honoring her heritage. The Thompsons' need had evolved into more than just a bakery. It was a beacon of community, storytelling, and nurturing. The dawn that broke the next day felt different. It signaled a new beginning, bursting with potential. Martha no longer saw her father's legacy as a burden to bear, but as a powerful foundation upon which she could build something profoundly beautiful. And thus, with renewed vigor, she embraced the direction of the future she was crafting, realizing that the only obstacle remaining was her own imagination. The past had become a source of power, and with that, she stepped boldly into her renewed role not only as a baker, but as a creator of connection, warmth, and strength. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share and uplift those around you.